Hey everybody, welcome to our first Lawmatics live stream of 2023 with Matt Spiegel, the founder and CEO of Lawmatics. He's here to give us some updates, talk to us about some cool stuff. Maybe he'll show us some secret inside knowledge and ultimately answer a bunch of questions. Matt, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. As always, excited to be here and excited to take literally any and all questions. I can't promise I'll always answer every single question, but I'm happy to entertain every single question.
There we go. All right. Well, we've got a bunch of questions, but before we go into the questions, sorry guys. You want to give us just like the brief overview of what changes we've seen to Lawmatics in the last, 3 months or so?
Man, I guess there's been quite a lot. So first of all, there's been quite a lot that you've seen, and there's a lot that you haven't seen, which I think sometimes is just as cool. But look, we've had a really big focus on kind of the core of what we do. I think that's something we are really working on, and so that means a CRM, right, and an intake and marketing automation platform. And so we've tried to go a lot deeper on things that are related to CRM. So for example, we've launched the ability to merge contacts, right? And we're going to have the ability to merge matters pretty soon. Going deeper on those things that make us very valuable and more foundational to the law firm has been our focus for the last few months. We just launched something I've been really excited about, I announced it in the Facebook group, so everybody who's listening probably is aware of it. But we haven't made a formal product announcement yet. We will be doing that next week. But we launched the ability to change the way that you handle true-false fields on custom forms and giving you a lot more flexibility. And it seems like something so silly, and this is what I think is so fun about building a product like Lawmatics, because sometimes it's these really little things that have the biggest impact. And this was one of those things where you guys all know, like on forms in Lawmatics, it's like a toggle, right? It's like true, false. But because it's a toggle and it only has two states, it's like false is an answer and it's always false unless you turn it to true.
So it's also green.
Yeah. And so we added the ability, first of all, to choose the way that you display a true false field. So you could display it as a toggle. You could display it now as a drop down. So you select yes or no, or a checkbox, right? But what we also added was the ability for any one of those to be required as being true as the answer. And what that does is now you have these forms where perhaps you want to say, I acknowledge that I've read these terms and conditions. And it's a checkbox that you have to say, I read this, right? And if you don't check that, you can't submit the form. Now you can do that quite easily in Lawmatics.
That's awesome.
So that's something that was a big change that we made just recently. And again, we're going to launch it. And then I think you have a thought on that, and then I can go deeper.
Well, it's from the standpoint of people who unsubscribe to promotional emails. I've gotten feedback of like, did I unsubscribe or not? Stop contacting me. But also I don't know where the checkbox is or whatever. So sorry to anybody I spammed with my emails.
That's right. Yeah. So that will make that a lot easier. And then look, I think a lot of people have probably noticed this already. And if you haven't, you'll notice it after I tell you and you go look. But we are undergoing a massive UX change inside of Lawmatics right now. And for those of you that don't understand, let me explain the difference between UI and UX, right? UI is user interface. That's the way things look, right? So if we were to change the UI, we might take the navigation from the top and move it over to the side or something, right? It's effectively the same action. Or maybe it's a different color. That's UI, right? UX is user experience. It changes the way that you interact with things. It changes your entire experience with something. And we are undergoing, it's a little bit of both, but it's more so on the UX side. And internally, we call this create from within. And it's the idea, and anybody who's gotten started with Lawmatics understands that there are some frustrations. And a lot of those frustrations when you're first getting started is, let's say you go into automations and you decide that you want to build an automation that is going to send an email, and you click on that send email action note. It's very easy to do that, right? That building an automation in Lawmatics is quite simple. But when you're just in Lawmatics and you go to that send email and you get to that email drop down and you're like, oh, wait a second, I don't have any emails. How do I create an email? And that's where things can start to break down, because now they have to leave that screen. They have to find where they go to create an email. And it can be difficult. And that's the case with forms, documents, or anything in Lawmatics. Now,
well, hold on, Matt, because I am so old, or I have used Lawmatics so long. I remember when custom fields were a problem on this. You had to go into the settings to do them, to put them into forms. I know you guys have had that now for a while.
We've had that for a while. And so, sort of piggybacking on that, what we've come up with is this entire new paradigm, and it's a new UX. And so if you guys all realize, when you're using Lawmatics and you click on something, it's like a little screen that pops up in the middle. It's called a modal, right? It pops right up in the middle and you fill it out. We are going away from all of those, and we are moving everything into a panel that slides out from the right-hand side of the screen. And cool. we call it layers. And what it allows us to do is, you can stack layers on top. So if you have, and this is already live in the system, you can already see the direction that we're going with all of this, because we are going to allow you to create every single thing that you need to create in Lawmatics. You will be able to do from wherever you are using it. And this is currently in the software. You can see, if you go to automations and you were to click on send email, you will see a little button next to the email dropdown that says create new email. And it will slide right out from the right. You can create your email right there with all of your merge fields, everything you need. You hit save, and now you're right back on the automation screen, and the email you just created is selected.
Awesome. Emphasis on click
this is
save.
The paradigm.
I've made that mistake too many times.
And we're actually working on that too, so that it saves what you put in there. But
nice.
This is a massive paradigm shift, but it will make Lawmatics so much easier to use. So imagine, and it's everywhere. And I'm actually looking at our release plan, what we're going to be releasing tomorrow, because this weekend is a release weekend for us, right? So you guys are starting to see, we are in a cadence now where we are releasing every 2 weeks, period. And sometimes we will be releasing things that are big and that, make a big splash. And other times they might be under the hood changes only that you don't necessarily see, but you are experiencing. I'm looking at our release plan for this weekend, and we have a significant number of create from within stories. So areas in the platform where you're going to see these buttons that you can just click and open it up, and add whatever you need to add right from wherever you are. This also exists for Create Matter already inside Lawmatics. So if you click on Create Matter from like the top right, it's going to slide out from the right, and you're going to see that there's actually an ability to add create a new contact or a new company right from that form.
Oh, awesome.
We're going to, like this release, I think we're going to be adding that to relationship types. So when you're on a matter and you need to add a relationship and you haven't created any types, or you need to add a new one, just click a button and add your type right there. We've also completely reworked the user interface for custom forms and custom documents, so that now you can actually create forms and documents right from where you need to use them. You don't need to go out into any other part of the system. This is going to take over the entire platform. Everything will function like this, coming out from the right-hand side. And we think, from our user research and our discussions with people, we think that it is going to drastically improve way of life inside Lawmatics.
Love it. All right, I'm sure this will come up in a bunch of questions. I'm gonna jump in. Taylor Darcy, the early bird, gets our first question here. Any plans on integrations other than Zoom and Ring Central?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess the question I would put back is, I'm assuming that Taylor mean that he means specifically to video platforms and calling platforms.
That's my guess too. Yeah.
Right. So yes. But again, we are user driven. So we are going to listen to the feedback that we get from people to determine, hey, should we add Teams? Should we add Google Meet, right? What other platforms should we add? What our users ask us for? So I just encourage people to be very vocal because we do listen. And while one customer being very vocal may provide a lot of noise, we are typically going to put a little bit more value, to be honest with you, on more people clamoring for the same thing.
In that case, Matt,
so
everybody that I talk to wants Google Meet integration. All of us.
Google Meet. Okay.
Everyone.
That's duly noted and probably quite easy as well. Where we're actually working on a couple deeper integration points with some of with Google and with Microsoft. So
awesome.
I think that should be relatively straightforward over the next couple months.
Well, so that leads us right into Tanya Carroll's question. Any plans to integrate with Google Drive? Is that going to be part of the?
Yes. So we had a bit of a false start. So I'll share with you guys kind of our thinking on this. I always like to be super transparent with people, especially users who are willing to take some time out of the day to come and chat with us like this. You guys deserve full transparency, and we don't have anything to hide when it comes to the way that we develop product or anything like that. And so we were going to use a third-party platform to help us facilitate storage, document and file storage API access. There are lots of tools out there that allow us to make one code base that gets all of the integrations for free. And we went down that path. And we
hold on. Can I jump in for a second? So in essence, if you had this link to Lawmatics, it would integrate with everything else.
As far as a user, it would just look like we integrate with everything.
Gotcha. Okay.
But from our perspective, we just have to write one code to one API, and it takes care of all of the integrations for us. Really good outcome, right? Because development time can be cut, by 80%.
Right.
Because if we want to do OneDrive and Google Drive and Dropbox and Box and SharePoint, we have to build an integration for all of those, unless we use a system that allows us to just build one code base that goes to all of them automatically, right? And we went down that path, and we actually spent several months developing it, and it was great. And then we aborted mission, and we decided that we needed to do the integrations ourselves. And the reason why is because we're not willing to compromise security in any way, shape, or form. And what we couldn't guarantee from this third-party service is that the documents and files that were being uploaded were going to remain on our servers only, and not on some other server that we don't control and we don't know where it is. And that just became a hurdle that we were not willing to compromise on. And so we just decided to build them ourselves. So we have built OneDrive, and the OneDrive integration is going to be released. I don't know if it's going to be released this weekend, but it will be released within the next couple of weeks. And Google Drive is the next integration that we're building from a file standpoint.
Awesome. All right. So Tanya gives you all a shout out for the stuff on the right. So she had a matter, needed a company added with the slide out, company needed a contact added with the slide out. So awesome, seamless, no more going through all the things.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going for. And so this is not something that is developed just for new users. It is for existing users as well.
I've got a great question from Dan Snurbush next. So obviously he loves the focus on UX. I think we all do. What he'd love to see is an easy click, drag, drop to mark a deal or lead as won or lost. I guess in Pipedrive, it pops up a little row of drag icons along the bottom of the pipeline page on click and drag. If marked lost, a toast window asks why lost. Right now, fishing through the details page to find the lead status to mark it lost is a little clunky and makes pipeline triage slow without automations.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion. And we're actually, it's funny, we're switching we're switching some internal platforms right now. And the internal platform that we're switching to for some engineering product management allows for some similar functionality that we found to be very useful. So I think this is on our radar for some other reasons other than Dan bringing it up, which is typically enough to put it on our radar anyway.
There we go.
So yeah, Dan is a legend here. So we it's a great suggestion, and we are kind of thinking about it already.
Yeah, I almost wonder if you could like drag up and down or something like that for hired or not versus, left and right from stage to stage also.
Yeah, these are fun. Like UX problems like that are really fun ones for our design team. So we give them an idea, a kernel, and then we let them, bake it. So it's
Love
pretty
it.
interesting.
All right. Tanya asks, any plan to integrate with Zero? I don't know if that.
No,
Okay.
not currently. Again, I think our focus is not on time and billing. While we have built a pretty good product there, it's not a massive focus for us. The QuickBooks integration is pretty robust. It really depends on us looking into the level of effort and determining whether we could reuse a lot of what we built for QuickBooks to be used in Zero and reduce some of the lift that it would take. We haven't looked into it yet. It hasn't come up that much, to be honest with you. This is probably the first time I've heard about it in the last 2 to 3 months. It doesn't mean that it's not a good idea, and it doesn't mean that not a lot of other users don't want it as well. So we'd love to have a conversation. We'll look into it. Something that it might not be on our immediate roadmap, but we could get it on more of the medium term roadmap.
What about an opportunity to make automations repeatable? For example, every time a form is filled in the matter, the automation would trigger.
Yeah, we just had a discussion on that 2 days ago, and that is something that we are going to do. A very simple approach of this is an automation that can only run once, or allow this automation to run as many times as it can. There's definitely some hair on that one that we need to discuss as a product team, but we think that it's an important tool. We are also looking to give you guys ways to build automations or workflows outside of the automation platform. So maybe more specific to actual items. So like think tasks. Instead of having to go in and build automations for all these task workflows, imagine just being able to build a specific task workflow that can just be applied. And it has its own rules of when it goes to the next task. And then instead of building it through an automation, you can just have that workflow applied or have that workflow triggered by an automation. So some better ways to organize. And again, more UX stuff.
Yeah, I think somebody asked that question today earlier in the group about the kind of similar to Clio's workflows, but having something more task-based.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So if anybody has questions, go ahead and drop them in here now. Understand Matt and I are about 5 to 10 seconds before you all. It takes a while for the stream to catch on. So just try and be as specific as you can with your questions so that we know what you're referencing. Got an interesting one from Dan Snurbush. I know Dan, I know we've talked about this a bunch with Matt as well. What about thoughts on implementing a tool? I guess it's like canny.io, canny.io, but some way to give users space to vote on feature priorities, keep the community up to date on progress, get that feedback all in one place.
Yeah, so we're getting there. I think as a product team, we have to lean into this a little bit more. We're growing. Our product team is growing at Lawmatics and becoming more mature. There's been some reasons why we've held off on this to this point. I think we are much closer to wanting to do this. You will also start to see people from our product team starting to reach out to users to discuss new features that we're doing. Actually, I think one of our product managers has a conversation with Dan on the books, or maybe that's already happened, but I think it's going to happen soon about a big new feature that we're rolling out, which I'm actually happy to tell you guys about. So we are getting more mature there, and I think that it's coming soon.
Cool. You want to fill us in on that other feature, and then we'll go back to the questions, or you want me to do the questions and save the feature for the end?
I can tell you guys the feature because then there may be some questions about it.
Let's do it.
So maybe you guys have noticed in the system, but we have kind of retermed everything in the calendar to be labeled appointment. And we used to use the term event in some places. Now we use only the term appointment. And the reason is because we needed to reserve the word event. And that's because we are launching event management. We are going to have a new feature called events, which allows you to create registerable events. So if you're hosting if you're hosting a webinar, if you're doing a seminar, whatever events that you have that people need to register for, you will be able to do that in Lawmatics and manage that. So you can create a form that has whatever events you want to make available on that form, and people can select whichever events they want to register for. And when they submit that form, they will be registered for that event as an attendee. They will receive a calendar invite with the information that you need to provide, like whether it's a Zoom link or a Google link or a webinar, whatever the link is for that particular event, that person will receive it. It will only be them. It won't show all the attendees. And you can manage that. So you can go in and you can see, this is how many attendees I have. You could remove attendees. You can manage that. You'll be able to report on the different events that you have. And this is something that's been asked by our customer base for a long time. And so we are now putting the finishing touches on this functionality. It will also come with automatable features. So you'll be able to automate whatever you want, workflows to be triggered on somebody registering for an event.
And is that something you can cap attendance at?
So right now, some of the, that will be a feature that will come after we launch.
Okay.
Right now, we want to get the MVP version out there, and then we will iterate on it very quickly as we get feedback from people. We've already had some product discussions with customers about it, and putting a cap on attendees is one of the quick feedback points that we heard. So I suspect that we'll see that feature come pretty quickly after we launch it. But right now, the focus is on getting the MVP, the minimum viable product, ready and launched. And then we'll follow up with some cool features on top of it.
Awesome. And I imagine, the way that you all build all these things, this is just as helpful for non-digital events as it would be for digital events, because you could just, same RSVP list to a party just as much as a webinar.
That's right. You just put the address of the location that you're going to be holding the event in instead of a link to a Zoom meeting or whatever virtual platform you're using. So it's pretty exciting. We're very excited about it. I think we are right now, our product team is doing sprint planning for the next 2 weeks. So I will find out after this meeting what we anticipate being done in 2 weeks, which will dictate whether this gets launched in 2 weeks or whether it gets launched in 4 weeks. But the majority of it is done. We've been playing with it for a while in our staging environment. It's pretty awesome, and we're super excited about it.
For what it's worth, Matt, my firm has our annual Cinco de Mayo party, so 4 weeks doesn't help us. But 2 weeks might. No, I'm just kidding. All right, Dan has got a great question. What about syncing non-client emails to a matter?
Yeah, interesting. So I'm assuming he means emails that have email addresses that are not associated with any matter in the system at all.
Right, because I guess ultimately you could download them and upload them as a file in the matter, but in terms of getting that email sync, if you're talking to a probation officer, if you're talking to the court-appointed administrator of a trust, whatever the right terminology is.
So I think what that would require is for us to open up our email assigning inbox to basically just pull all email from your email inbox. And I think that could be good. It would need to be a setting. I think that a lot of people would not want that, but people who do would. Now, there still is, I don't know that anybody even realizes this anymore, but there still is a way in Lawmatics to forward. Although actually, if you do that, it would still need an email to match up. So yeah, good. It's an interesting thought that I don't think we've discussed that at all yet. We are going real deep on email and communication, and we are actually making some really key hires right now. I'll tell you guys, we're going to be spending quite a bit of money and hiring what's called a postmaster, which basically is somebody whose sole job it is to make sure all email gets delivered. And that is a massive breadth of functionality and policies and things like that. We are going to get a lot better at that. As you guys know, we now have the ability to send directly through the outbox, which eliminates any issue that you might have with sending mass emails and things like that. But we are really doubling down on this, and we're just going very deep into email. So something like this is right in our discussion wheelhouse right now.
There we go. So is it Tom Hanks from Castaway? Is that who the hire is?
Yeah, no, not that type of postmaster, different. And yeah, really, really kind of a profound hire for us. We're pretty excited about it. It's really it's putting an emphasis on the right part of the experience for us now. We have so many people using Lawmatics. People are sending so many emails, and we are doing a pretty good job of ensuring that we separate bad senders from good senders, and that we do everything that we can do to help people deliver email. But as we start to get into much more significant scale than even we are now, and if I told you guys the number of emails that we send on a monthly basis, your head would spin.
There we go.
And then it's not getting less, right? We're only sending more and more email. And so we need to have somebody who's got years and years of experience at big companies, people who have worked for SendGrid, which is the back-end email provider, or MailChimp, or Marketo, or Constant Contact. We're looking at people who have helped build those email platforms to come and just be our person who can spend, the next 2 years or more in ensuring that our platform is built to deliver email incredibly efficiently and effectively.
I love that. All right. I keep forgetting to ask this question. This is a selfish one, but you mentioned from the automation standpoint, you mentioned it being potentially kind of hairy to have the automations repeat. What about recurring tasks? Is that the same issue?
No, recurring task is easier, but I always ask, what do people mean by recurring tasks? So I'd love to hear from you, Jordan. What do you mean by a recurring task?
Sure. So if, this is a CRM, so from the relationship with referral sources, having something to check in with people every quarter and having that recur every quarter, to have a check-in with clients every so often that you could have the task repeat, things like that. Because I know when Thanes built the True CRM program, we basically just duplicated a lot of this 25 times to have it run over the course of several years.
Yeah. So this is on our radar. This has actually come up quite a bit. But I think some people have different ideas of what a recurring task might look like. And so I always like to ask and get the feedback. The way we view it is exactly the same as what you just described. And that is outside of automation, doesn't really have much hair on it. Actually pretty easy for us to do. What becomes harder is when you have, I only wanted to repeat if I haven't completed the previous one, things like that.
Gotcha.
And I think for purposes of 99% of the use cases out there, we don't need to worry about that. So it's a pretty easy thing that I suspect we will actually get to quite rapidly.
There we go. All right. Going back to Taylor Darcy, for this question. What about A/B testing on emails?
Like I said, we're going deep on email. We're hiring somebody whose job it is to look at that stuff and understand. A/B testing is something that we've always wanted to do. We use it a lot in our everyday marketing platform. And we are going deeper in the core of what makes Lawmatics. And that is kind of a fastball right down the middle.
Awesome. All right. So Tanya asks, from a UX standpoint, would love if there were filters everywhere, allowing search in every place. For example, reports have no searchability. The filters end up limited to the fields Lawmatics chooses. So she'd love, and I know I'm with you on this one, about loving filters on most pages that allow searches of any custom field in Lawmatics.
Yep, we're on it.
Okay.
We actually have, well, we already have a feature coming out this weekend that is not exactly that, but it is in the same vein. And it just shows you that we are thinking about this and working on it as we speak. We are launching the ability in pipelines and a couple other places to have relative date options so for example, if you're on the pipeline and you want to filter and you want to see every lead that was created last week, you can just click last week, right? And then save that filter so it will always be relative.
Somewhere out there, I know somebody who's very happy with what you just said.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people I think that are going to be very happy with that, but it's meant to, because it's, I'm very aware, Tanya, like that's not exactly what Tanya is saying, but it is in the same vein. And we're very aware of that. We're going to be beefing up our search capability, our filter capability. We needed to do some heavy lifting on the back end of Lawmatics first. I hope that you guys all see, like, we've invested a massive amount in reliability and infrastructure over the last 7 months. And we see significantly less issues inside of Lawmatics, right? Where there's always going to be bugs. It's a big platform. It's software development. There will always be little bugs, but we see like orders of magnitude less issues with like big bugs or things like just not like going out, and this is because of our investment in infrastructure and reliability. There was some heavy lifting that we wanted to do to ensure that we can open up search and filter at a great scale without impacting the performance of the platform. That heavy lifting has pretty much been done already. Now the ability to reap the benefits of that inside of the platform should be ready or close to ready.
That being said, somebody's, I guess, having email issues with emails syncing. So hopefully, let me see if I got currently emails aren't syncing properly.
Yeah, so they should be. If a firm is experiencing that, we should reach out to us, because there's typically a couple troubleshooting things that we can do to fix that. We've done a whole lot with that integration with email just in the last 2 weeks. So oftentimes, if anybody's still experiencing issues, it's because we just need to maybe disconnect and reconnect it, or there's like a little button we might need to click on our end to kind of trigger something. So I would just reach out to support. But this is probably from an infrastructure and reliability standpoint, right now as a company, we have two top priorities. One is email and two is documents, ensuring that documents are built very quickly and sent out. People, when you send out for something for signature, it needs to go right away. And we're just ensuring it's really not a big problem, but we are making sure that it's never going to be a problem. So those are two of our big initiatives on the infrastructure and reliability side. So if you are experiencing an issue with email syncing, just reach out to our support team. They'll get back to you pretty much right away. And
awesome.
They should have a solution.
All right. So we got a good question coming in from Nathan about any planned UX updates for automations, like being able to drag and drop to reorder stages, or maybe copy, pasting, duplicating steps in an automation.
Yeah, there are some. We've been talking about a complete overhaul of automation UI for some time. And one idea we have is to go to more of like the canvas approach where you can kind of drag things around and there's little lines that connect them and you can rearrange those. Uh, so yes, there are plans. Nothing is imminent, but it is definitely on our radar.
Awesome. All right, back to Dan Snurbush. We've got some questions coming in from Dan. What about any sneak peeks of future UI UX updates for Matter pages that you can share?
I don't have any sneak peeks,
Okay.
but it's very. I mean, you've seen a couple changes to the page recently. We have a lot more changes that we're debating. We're very, I'm not going to say cautious about them, but we're anal about them. When we make a change to that view, we want it to be absolutely perfect and beautiful. And our approach is probably going to be a bit more modular. So, options and containers for different things that you might want to view on that Matter details page straight away. It involves getting rid of some components to pick up more real estate on that page. It probably involves using our right-hand slide out a bit more, which is going to be very helpful. So it's very much, I don't have a sneak peek, but it's very much at the forefront of our minds right now. I think on like a weekly or bi-weekly basis right now, I'm getting new mock-ups from our design team on what we could do and different options. And I think it's twofold. I think we're thinking about it not just in terms of the Matter details page, but also as something that we could use on the dashboard.
How so?
Well, just revamping the dashboard. So
if we giving the same customization to it.
Yeah. If we come up with a paradigm that can be used in both places, we think it's a much better approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You're talking about the pullout from the right. For me, I think Matters, the biggest issue I find is like the stuff on the left. Like if you've got emails, a lot of times you can't just click to email them, or you've got to go in and drag, and it's not going to copy the whole email. And so some of that becomes a little complicated.
That's right. All
right. What about Dan asks, any chance of HTML email signatures?
Probably. I haven't directly talked with the team about it, but I think that they have bounced it back and forth from an engineering standpoint. But I will check on that one. Not anything that I've really spoken to them about in the recent past.
And I mean, I would imagine if you can do the HTML emails, you could build a signature sort of in that way versus having it just append as a signature from the check. So there might be a way that it's in there.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is a little outside my pay grade. So I go to the engineers and talk to them about that one.
Makes total sense. Dan's got a great idea of following, and I say this not just because he's following up on my discussion recurring tasks, but like having something on the homepage. Hey, for example, you haven't talked to Jim Smith in a while with a filtered view for referral partner contact, something like that. Click this easy button to send a text or an email.
Yep. Yeah, those are the kind of things that we're thinking about on the dashboard too.
What about, another question from, there we go. So Dan, another question from Dan, but Regina chimed in with, she wants to ask the same questions that Dan has. So any chance of a consolidated text message interface like Facebook Messenger to be able to see new inbound text, quickly shoot out text to Matters contacts that way?
8,000% yes.
All right. There we go. So do the question about texting. All right, we got that. What about plans to have a better system for client experience in the portal? Like, for example, when I signed up for LMPay, it had many steps with a nice platform to fill multiple forms, upload docs, etc. The ability to kind of translate some of that over the client portal.
There are no plans right now. I'll be honest, we've definitely have been not focused on the client portal over the last 6 or 7 months because there's so much to focus on the client side, on the customer side. Everything that we do have a discussion. Hey, does this affect the client portal? Do we need to think about the client portal for this particular feature? But going directly into the client portal to just enhance the experience there is not something that we've done recently. I don't think we will be doing it over the next month or two, just because we're still very deep in the upgrades that we're doing to the platform. But I suspect that middle or towards the end of this quarter, we'll start to see some focused shift to things that we need to do on the portal side, or functionality that we have, just enhancing it into the portal side. And we'll probably reach out to people just like you guys to discuss that and understand a bit more about what you might want to see. But it will be another probably month or two before we dive into it.
Makes total sense. All right, so you're getting a lot of support here. So Dan says modular, matter page, movable, resizable, either way, love where your head's at. And then Dan and Regina are geeking out about the text answer. So,
well, so it's not just, I want to be clear too, it's not just text, right? There's that internal messaging component that we have that you can message clients in the portal. And so we want it actually to just be one messaging platform altogether, whether it's by text or whether it's by message into the portal. You'll be able to identify what the messages are, what the means of communication are, and address them all in one place. Yeah, man, and filter, like, so it's like, oh, I just want to see the text messages. Okay, cool. You're just text messages. I want to see all the messages and the text, so everything in one spot.
Well, and that kind of goes back to what Dan was talking about with the ability to sync like the non-client emails. So if you've got discussions with opposing counsel, having somewhere where you could filter, discussions about scheduling the hearing that you've mailed the stuff for, letting the client know about the hearing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, so like, look, the beauty is I've got a lot of good experience in this because I think we had the best in class messaging platform and portal at my case. And, that was like the reason why I started my case was all about that. And so we kind of pioneered that, and we had a really good kind of central place where you could go to see all your messages kind of regardless of the medium by which they came in. And to be honest with you, we already have it in Lawmatics. It's just the idea of adding text message into it. And I think that's 8,000% going to come pretty quickly, I think.
And what about being able to send those messages from the normal firm line? And like, I have no idea if that's even possible with any government agency or whatever.
It's possible. We are looking into it. It is hard. Or it's not hard, but it can be tricky. We are looking into it.
Yeah, because that's the one that makes no sense to me to not have it, but it also makes sense to me if you can't have it for some reason with the automated texting with the FCC, FTC, I don't know, whatever the stuff is. I can imagine there's a lot of red tape.
No, I think we can do it. I think we have to be very careful about ensuring that we do it in a way that doesn't, pardon my expression, but fuck up the phone number. I think that's what we want to make sure we do perfectly.
Makes total sense. All right. If anybody else has any questions, drop them in here. We've got Matt for about 15 more minutes. In the meantime, while we're waiting on some of those questions, Matt, I'm curious to know, I mean, it's so cool. You talk about, you've got these sprints, you've got the next month or so outlook. What's the craziest goal that is on the horizon anywhere for you in Lawmatics? Like, what's the BHAG?
Well, truthfully, I want people to be able to onboard Lawmatics without our team. And I don't think that's real. Like, if you're going to go in, what you should need help with, what you should have to go to Jordan and team for, right, is to build out the robust content and to understand, man, this is how I need to run a marketing program, right? But you shouldn't need them to teach you how to just use the software, right? Or to understand the value of the software, to build a simple automation and things like that. So we are working towards that goal for these, really a firm of any size, but especially on the smaller end, we want them to be able to just, hey, I can just put my email in and get a trial of Lawmatics and see that what value it's going to deliver to my firm. And then sure, I'm going to need to go and build out marketing campaigns. And that is going to be something that I might need an expert to come in and help me with. But as far as understanding Lawmatics and how to use it and the value that it can provide, you can get that without anybody from our team needing to show it to you, or any salesperson even needing to sell you the software. That is something that I'm really, really excited about. And it's a big reason why we're doing, there's the overhaul that we're doing to the UI is twofold. It's to help existing customers and to make it easier, but it's also to help future customers coming onto the platform experience the value much quicker.
Well, and like it always, oops, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it's always amazing to me the amount of new features you all put out there, but also with the effort on making the ability to do more things simpler for people. Like it's an interesting balance.
Well, it's a very fine balance right now, because I could very easily put our entire engineering team on just the create from within and making all the right-hand slide outs and everything more usable. But that would come at the expense of new functionality. And I'm just big on enhancing the platform constantly. And so I'm not willing to completely abandon new feature development while we focus on UX improvements. I'd rather have both going on at the same time. But it does strike a balance. And it does sometimes, it's a push and pull. And we're doing a pretty good job of it right now. Sometimes we don't do as good of a job of it, but right now we are doing a pretty good job of it. I'm pretty happy with how our team is performing and handling the different priorities and different focuses there. Not really focuses, but just different priorities.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's all a balance. You could put in a billion features that make it unusably complicated. So I think you all have done such a good job threading the needle, walking the line. I don't know, whatever you want, whatever analogy you want to use.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's constant. It's not, it's nothing we will ever win at. We just have to always ensure that we're doing our best. That becomes harder as we grow, right? Like Lawmatics has grown a lot in the last year and a half, both in customers and team size, all of it. And it's, it can be a juggling act sometimes, but it's what we're good at. I think it's one of the best things. And anybody who's ever in San Diego, I know Taylor is always here, so he needs to come by and check it out. But anybody who's ever visiting in San Diego, you got to come check out our new digs. We've got a pretty awesome new office here in La Jolla, or UT, kind of the commercial part of La Jolla. It's not like the beach part of La Jolla. It's the commercial part of La Jolla. Really awesome place. We're super excited, but we moved to an office that's 3 times as big as the office that we had before. And this is just a function of us, being back in the office and having a culture that is very community centric. You'd be shocked. People, in fact, we had a couple customers. It's a cool story. So we had a bake off. So we have at Lawmatics, we have culture teams. So the entire company is divided into, every year it changes. It's divided into teams. And I think there's like 5 or 6 teams. And those teams compete in different culture events throughout the year.
Is it
at the end of the year
random teams, or is there like a favorite color to pick the teams?
No,
or?
our head of HR picks the teams each year.
Gotcha.
And then gives them, and then everyone comes up with a name. And we do different events. Like, for example, there was an event last week, which was an egg hunt for Easter. And it's always a fun one because the hiding places for the eggs are pretty extraordinary. And then points are given out for the teams that finish in first place. And the other day, one of our contests was a bake-off. And so every team had to bake, and then we had to choose one dish that was set out for judging. But we could not have an.
You were one of the judges?
No, we couldn't have an internal judge, because that wouldn't be fair. I'm on one of the teams. So we actually had one of our customers in San Diego came in, one of the attorneys came in to be a judge. And then another person who's kind of legendary in the space, her name is Claire Barnes. She's a big tech consultant and legal. She's been in legal tech consulting for like, very long time. She lives in San Diego. She came into the office to be a judge as well. So we had these 2 third-party judges come into the office. And when we have people like that come in, they're just, typically I think they're pretty shocked at the culture that we have here. It's really fun. Everyone works really hard, but plays hard. And there's a lot of creativity going around the office and all the cool stuff that we.
So Dan asks, any chance of batch document generation, either via automation or on click, that lands in the Matter or Google Drive or whatever, rather than via email?
Yeah. Yes. I'm like trying to think. I'm like, man, we don't do that now. So let me look at that one a little bit.
And then Regina and then a bunch of people jumped on. It's this is the only law software I'm happy to pay monthly for, and that's saying a lot. So I think
that's awesome.
We're talking about all.
We appreciate. We really appreciate that.
Taylor says he's 10 minutes away and is a little disappointed he wasn't picking some baked goods. He'll come over anytime.
I know. I'm like, as I was saying that, I'm like, man, why didn't Taylor come in? And that's a great question as to why. I'm gonna have. Don't worry, Taylor. You're on the. You are the list for the next event. Not even the short list. You are the list.
There we go. But the next one is Brussels sprouts only.
Yeah, that's right. I don't even know what the next. I mean, we had ping pong and cornhole tournament was like one of the first ones of the year. We're very into like a kind of a nerdy game called Dominion, which is like kind of one of those like Magic the Gathering like card games, and that's getting played very often in the office. I suspect that there might be some sort of contest around that coming soon. But yeah, we've got like this really cool space. Can people see video?
Yeah, you're on video. Yeah, you're on video. You just happen to freeze at exactly the moment that you said.
Yeah, I was gonna walk here and show like our space, because we've got this like, it's just a really great open space here that we hang out in, and we have like, you can see we've got the ping pong table ready to go, and so there's a lot of great contests and fun that happen here, and you can see actually there's a card game like in progress. So these are, there's just a lot of fun things happening here, and it's a fun place to come and visit. So I encourage anybody to come and do it.
That space is so much bigger than your last space.
Oh, this space. Well, yeah, you saw where I'm coming from, and then it just keeps going. And then what we also have over here is, and today's Thursday, so everybody's remote, or a lot of people are remote today.
I was going to say, I don't know if you kicked them out for us or not.
No, there's actually just like Erica. A lot of people know Erica. Erica can say hi, and then everybody knows Johnny. Johnny can say hi right there. But then we also have like a 2,500 square foot balcony out there. That's going to be really fun for the summer.
There we go. Awesome. And a bunch of people say they love Dominion. So maybe there's a way to incorporate that into some stuff. All right. Well, I think we've got no more questions. So Matt, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you to all you guys. This is always fun for me. As you can tell, like I love showing our behind the scenes and all the stuff that people never get to talk about or see. This is what kind of keeps me going and excites me. So can't wait for the next one.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you to everybody who spent some time with us here. This will live live. You can go back. And if you drop any extra questions for other things that come up, potentially Matt or Anna or somebody else will go through and go from there. In the meantime, have a great day, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Exhibit A Attorneys. If you're interested in becoming the Exhibit A of Successful Attorney, please check us out at legalesemarketing.com, EASE.